Jazz Club. Really flying the music. Okay.
Greetings and salutations. Here we go. One more again. Hey, everyone. Good evening. It's Thursday, 8 p.m. on the East Coast, 5 p.m. on the West Coast. And it's our final episode of The Death of Cliff Huxtable. It's been an extraordinary experience doing this with you all. I know exactly what I would have been doing had it not been the coronavirus in full swing right now. It is the beginning of July. I would be probably just now coming home from school, summer session with my PhD program, as well as the renovations that we're doing at Prairie View in the TV studio and on the sound stage, creating a new film sound stage. And some of that is still happening. Like the renovations are still happening. Trying my best to kind of keep my distance because, COVID-19, 20, 21, whatever number it is, whatever's going to be is still in full effect. And people are still trying to work, but maintain distance and keep their mask and keep themselves safe. But I know that my life would be very, very different were we not in this situation right now. But to everything, there's a blessing, right? And the blessing has been a few things. Number one, for probably the last, 5 years at least, there's this constant pang of you're doing too much. You got too many irons in the fire. You need to slow down. When do you sleep? Every time you turn around, somebody's posting on Facebook or on Twitter or sending me a text message, TDV, when do you sleep? You don't ever sleep. You always here, or and so maybe a blessing is I've gotten more rest. But then, we've moved into this awesome new house and that dissipated because there's a lot going on there, but it's absolutely a blessing. But I've been able to focus on some of my creative work, which I haven't been able to do since I started my position at Prairie View. Tonight, we've got a couple of features with this particular episode. We're going to hear from the Reverend Dr. Carolyn L. Gordon as she performs the eulogy that she wrote for the book. Carolyn is the Associate Professor of Mass Communication at Mississippi Valley State University. She's also a nationally and internationally renowned Baptist minister. But before we get to her reading, let me just tell you a little bit about Carolyn. And certainly before we just kind of dive into the material tonight, Laura, if you can bring me back up, because I just want to look Carolyn in the face when I say this before she does her material tonight. Carolyn Gordon was one of my college professors at James Madison University. I first met Carolyn in the fall of 1990 and had her as a professor the spring of 1991. And what I will tell you about this woman today is she's one of the three people I recognize in my life as a mentor. And by that, I mean, this is someone who's always told me one message and consistently one message, even as recent as yesterday during our rehearsal. Trust your voice. Trust your voice. And no one had ever really told me that before. I mean, I've been empowered by so many amazing women in my life, my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, my siblings, my teachers, community mentors. But no one really said that my voice had a particular power. And in that inspired me to join the speech and debate team at James Madison University, where I would eventually become a nationally ranked public speaker. In 1994, I was the number 5 speaker overall, and I was the number 1 African American and the number 1 female speaker in the United States. And I had no idea I could do such a thing were it not for Carolyn Gordon. So tonight, I asked her to write the eulogy for the book in 2015 because no one in my mind could set this piece to rest better than her. Her grace, her style, her imagination, her wisdom, her care were things that I knew I could call upon in writing a proper eulogy for Cliff Huxtable. Given the nature of what this project is, I absolutely wanted someone who understood what my intention was with this project and the love that I have for the Cosby Show and for the Huxtable family. And this was our way of saluting a character that had his fingerprints on the growth of all of us. So, without further ado, we will be presenting the epilogue, the eulogy of Cliff Huxtable.
Today we gather to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Clifford Heathcliff Huxtable, a man of grace, courage, conviction, and joy. He was a man that loved life and loved being loved by life. Even though I am here as his pastor, I stand here and I mourn with you as I miss my brother, my confidant, and my friend. Many of you don't know that I had a long heard of Dr. Huxtable before I actually met him. In fact, when I first heard of him, I didn't know him as Dr. Huxtable. I knew him as Combustible Huxtable. My father was Stanford Tailwind Turner, and he was known as the best runner ever, and Dr. Heathcliff was known as the second best runner ever. In fact, I grew up hearing about how Daddy ran track against Hillman College and became the only track star ever to beat Combustible Huxtable, his ultimate rival. Little did my father know that his biggest rival would one day become one of my parishioners and my best friends. As with any death, we wrestle with the questions why. Why Dr. Huxtable and why now? As his spouse, Claire, I know you ponder, how can I go on with this broken heart? And how do I live my life now with half of me gone? How will you survive? As his children, Sandra, Theo, Vanessa, Denise, and Rudy. I know you're wondering, how am I going to go on without my father? How am I going to survive this? How am I going to live without him? What am I going to do without him? And for those of you who are other relatives, friends, and just close associates, I know you wonder too, why is it that Dr. Huxtable, a man that literally brought life to so many of us, have to die? Why did he have to die? Well, my friends, the reality is a simple one that Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable understood well. At birth, when we accept the first breath of life, we sign an eternally binding contract which ensures that we will one day give it back. We will give that breath back. Last week, Dr. Huxtable completed his contractual agreement with death, with life, and accepted his last responsibility of death. In essence, he relinquished back to God the breath that God had entrusted in him. He understood that death is just as much as part of life as life is a part of death. It is complicated, but yet comforting in a way. And as we look at the scripture, you will see that in Ecclesiastes it was written, there's a time under the season, a time under the sun, under heavens. There's a time to live and there's a time to die. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 2. And in understanding that, we must understand that there is a time to live and a time to die. Today, as Dr. Huxtable is laid to rest, let's reflect on his life and what we can learn from his example. As mentioned previously, I knew Dr. Huxtable's reputation before I had ever met him. Well, all that changed more than 20 years ago when I was initially called to be pastor of this church. Upon meeting Dr. Huxtable, he began our first encounter by saying, "I don't like your father much, and so the jury is still out on you." I extended my hand to shake his, and he just stared at me. Then he said, "Let me ask you a question. You like jazz?" I responded, I was a music major in undergrad, and without blinking, he just kept staring, seemingly a bit annoyed. He said, "Rev, do you like jazz?" Now, I was a tad bit annoyed, and I responded, "Charlie Parker or John Coltrane?" And then he responded, "We can decide that Thursday night when you come over for dinner. Come over with you and the family." And with that, he simply smiled and walked away. I showed up at his house that Thursday evening with a homemade sweet potato pie in one hand and my alto saxophone in the other. He smiled, nodded with approval, and then he muttered, "At least she's got more common sense than her father." Since that time until last week, we met every month, his family and mine, for a Thursday night jam session filled with food, jazz, and conversation. We did that for 20 years. During those gatherings, we discussed a lot of things. Claire, not a single evening went by that he didn't talk about you and the rest of the family. He loved you with the love that only God could give, and he never wavered from that love. In actuality, in his heart and his soul did not possess the capacity to think of anything other. Sandra, Denise, Theo, Vanessa, Rudy. To you, Mr. Huxtable, each of you were an offshoot of the love between him and your mother, and he would have given his soul for any one of you, singularly or collectively. He loved you. In fact, as this nation mourns the loss of your dear father and his soul, this great man, many do so because Mr. Huxtable was this humbly iconic figure that became the father that many wanted to be, or the father that many wish they had. He was loved, he was cared for, and he was respected. He became the model of what the man that some dreamed of marrying and that others dreamed of becoming, because he was many of us, because he was many of us came to be. In fact, I was so much inspired by your father that I confess in my closet right now, I have a cadre of colorful design sweaters that I would wear every Thursday night when we would get together. You remember. And even though I know I couldn't beat him, and like my father, we competed and he won, that's how much I appreciated his creativity, his love for the arts, and his love for humanity. So even now, as we miss him, we must understand that as Dr. Huxtable loved life, he lived life well. In fact, every so often he would lean over and say, Rev, it gets no better than this. I'm going to suck all the marrow out of life to the point that when I die, life is going to ask God for a vacation. So as we wrestle with Dr. Huxtable's death and all the tragedies going on right now in our private lives and in the world, we must not forget to live. We must not forget to understand that even though we feel that life has gone on vacation, and some of you may feel so betrayed by God right now that you feel that God has gone on vacation with her, we must not lose hope. We must continue to live. Somehow we must find a way to continue to live life to its fullest. For the rest of us, we're still alive. There's a season under the sun, a time to live and a time to die. I know it's hard. And sometimes we don't feel like it. And I suspect that when Jesus told the disciples about his own imminent death, he knew the pain they felt. And that's why he said these words, let not your heart be troubled, and neither let it be afraid. In the appointed time, he understood their deepest despair. And again, he said, let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, also believe in me. And then he concludes by consoling them, by promising to give them his peace, a peace that would both help the disciples to live while help Christ to die. This is a peace that had the capacity to serve as an escort for Christ's crucifixion and an usher for his resurrection. This same peace assisted the disciples in enduring one and proclaiming the other. This is the peace we must ask for. This is the peace that we must cling to as we understand and strive to live until we die. My peace I leave unto you was Jesus' last words. Let not your heart be troubled, and neither let it be afraid. For instance, one of my most memorable times with Dr. Huxtable happened several years ago when I received a call from him late one night. It was a miserably snowy evening. It was treacherous. And he was leaving a hospital and wanted to stop by the house for a chat. I reminded Dr. Huxtable that night that it was really late. No, actually, it was really early. It was 3 a.m. in the morning. And Denise, he jokingly responded, I still don't like your father, and the jury is still out on you. Oh, we chuckled for a bit, but we also knew that it had to be something extremely serious, or he would have gone straight home. But he said he wanted to talk. He wanted to talk to me, his pastor. So my husband put on the coffee and we just sat and waited. And finally, Dr. Huxtable got there and he was still wearing his soiled scrubs. He was barely wearing his coat and he looked so defeated and so disheveled. In fact, I've never seen him look so down. When he came in, we sat in silence for what seemed like hours. He held his coffee between the palms of his hands, but he never took a sip. He just stared into the coffee. He stared into the mug as though its contents had the answer to his yet unasked question. Finally, he simply muttered, I don't get it. I don't understand. How? Dr. Huxtable looked up at me, and wisdom suggested that I remain silent. Just sit. And so I sat there, and Dr. Huxtable dealt with his pain as I watched. Silence again fell for what seemed like more hours. And then, Vanessa, he started talking. He said, Rev, I don't get it. I don't understand. All my life, I have trusted and believed in a power greater than myself. As an OBGYN, I have always seen myself as God's assistant. It was my job to help usher babies into the world, and it was God's job to show up and to give them life. He paused for a loud silence. For all these years, God and I have served well as a team. I pull them out. He shows up and gives them life. I pull them out. He shows up and gives them life by giving them breath. God does that because that's his job. Tonight, I don't know what happened. I was there, but I don't know what happened to God. I was there. The babies were there, but where was God to give those triplets life? Their parents' first children. And they were all born. Stillborn. Yesterday morning, I heard 3 heartbeats. Tonight, I could not find one, not one, not one. Rev, I was there. The babies were there. The parents were there. But where was God? Did he just decide not to show up? Can God just quit doing his job? Quit just like that? Rudy, he began sobbing. His broken heart broke my heart. And we both just cried. After a few moments, I said to Dr. Huxtable, it is not in God's nature to quit anything. And it's not in God's nature to just have one job description to do just one thing. God is sovereign. And God can do anything befitting his sovereignty. I can't and I won't try to explain why those babies didn't survive tonight. But I can tell you one thing. God loved those babies, and God was there. God was there loving you, loving those parents, and loving those children. See, when a birth happens, God is there as a divine midwife, welcoming the new life into the world. At every death, God serves as the divine undertaker, welcoming the dying into new life. Tonight, he didn't quit his job. Tonight, he did not abandon you. Tonight, God worked a double shift and did both. This is not the time to doubt God, Clift. On the other hand, this is a time to trust God with all of your heart. Those babies are in his care. Death and life are 2 sides to the same coin. Tonight, those babies experienced both. They experienced the life God gives, and they experienced the death that life guarantees. There's always a time and a season for both. Dr. Huxtable sat silently there for a while, reflecting on the conversation. He then responded, Rev, I have never thought about death as an act of God's divine love, but it makes sense. You make sense. Then I saw a peace come over him, Claire, in a way that I had never witnessed in anybody before. He smiled. He got up. He never touched the coffee. He gathered himself. He joked a bit with my husband. And then he left. As he walked out the door, I heard him humming a jazz rendition of When the Saints Go Marching In. We must understand there's a time to live and there is a time to die. Last week, Doc and I spent some wonderful time together. As I gathered my things to leave, he reminded me of that evening. He said, Rev, you remember that time I came to your house the night the triplets died? I nodded in remembrance. He said, I never really thanked you for helping me to understand that death is also an act of God's divine love. I know that I don't have much time left, but I want you to know I'm not afraid. I have lived well, and I plan to die as well as I lived. I have God's peace. Thank you for being my pastor. Thank you for being my sister. And thank you for being my friend. And thank you for being Sanford Tailwind Turner's daughter. He says, I need to tell you something. The jury has finally come in and you have been acquitted. We both laughed a little bit, and then I looked at him one more time and he looked at me. We hugged, and as we embraced, he whispered in my ear, don't worry, I'll be all right. God is coming to escort me home. I smiled and brushed back the tears as we hugged one long last time. As I left Dr. Huxtable's room, I heard Louis Armstrong in the background singing that sweet refrain, what a wonderful world. I thought about it, and although I felt sad, I found myself smiling and answering his question, or answering in a refrain, so to speak. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because there's a time to live and a time to die. A time to live and a time to die. And Dr. Huxtable modeled for us how to do both well. He has now been ushered into eternal rest by the divine undertaker. And we say our final goodbyes. We say them. And as we say them, we must resolve to live and follow his example. To live well and to die well, for there is a time and a season for both. As we say goodbye to our husband and our father and our friend, let us remember that it is Dr. Huxtable who has died. And we have been challenged to live. So as you live the best you can. Live until the time comes when the grace of God steps in and ushers you to that final destination. Let us remember and be reminded, like Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable, let's live and suck all the marrow out of life. Let's give life such a run for its money that when we die, life is going to ask God for a vacation. As we come to the conclusion of our final celebration, Claire, Vanessa, Theo, Sandra, Denise, and Rudy, I want you to know that we are still here for you. We know there are going to be some long nights, some long days, and some sleepless nights. We know there's going to be some tears with each holiday, with each birthday, but just know you still have us. If you need anything, call me. I'm still your pastor. If you need anything, no matter where you are in this world, call us and we'll come running. Now, as we plan to end, the funeral director has asked me to remind you that for those of you who are planning to participate in the burial, please hurry to your cars. Please turn on your lights. And for those that will not be going, the repast will not be here at the church, but it will be at the Huxtable residence. And you are invited to stop by, come over, and offer some love to the family. Now, as we close, let's bow for the final benediction. Now may the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard your hearts, abide with you, and keep you in perfect peace. May you always remember that God's love for you is both bringing you life and will usher you into death one day. And you need not fear, for the God who loves you best, knows you best, and loves you the most. Let the church say, Amen.
Carolyn, thank you so very much for such an extraordinary finish to this series. I'm a puddle of water right now. I'm a puddle of water right now. 3/4 because of you, just your beauty and your grace and your artistry and your creativity and your brilliance. 3/4. That final quarter of something is you essentially encapsulated what that narrative, the Huxtable family, the Cosby show, aside from the scandal of everything, right? You pretty much eulogized an era. You eulogized an innocence, in a sense, an innocence in a sense, of a time when we when we just experienced the pure joy of that family, of that story, of the storytelling, and in your delivery, I just flashed back easily through 9 years of episodes. I think I had like a flash of all of my favorite moments from the series. Please tell us, how did you come to write the eulogy?
Well, thank you for the invitation to be a part of it. It was its own journey. And honestly, part of it and part of what fuels me in this situation was the fact that you asked me to do it. And I had to keep you in my head. What would Terésa do? How can we look at this? Because I had read the series before you had published it, and I was such a fan. And so how can I literally do the eulogy? Who do I need to be in it? And so part of it too is just divine grace. Okay, God is co-creator, divine grace. And so the notion of bringing Sanford Tailwind Turner back in, the notion of all of that was just, you inspired me. Okay, and so it just made sense. How can we tell the story to encapsulate his life and be as a clergy, be a part of that, as opposed to so many times when the clergy is absent and they just show up for the funeral, And so how can this clergy person know this person?
Yeah.
How can we speak to his spirituality and his humanness at the same time? And then the theological part, how do you eulogize someone, because I actually have my own philosophy that even as I preach eulogies, the key is to understand the pain of the family, understand what this person brought to the world, and understand funerals are for the living and not for the dead.
Mm.
So that's all I got.
Well, it's it's interesting in that I spent so much time in the series in writing the book, bringing back so many pivotal characters who were instrumental in the storytelling, not just the main characters, but bringing Peter back, bringing Kenny back, incorporating Miss Chantilly. And when you sent me the first draft for the epilogue, I was doing the exact same thing. I was just like, oh my God, this is beautiful. But oh my God, I forgot about Tailwind Turner. And how just so I have to thank you, because I had gotten responses from people that were like, you included everyone. You had Eunice in there, you had Tailwind Turner. And I was like, well, thank you. So that was just a stroke of great fortune and genius that you incorporated him. How did the Cosby Show land on you when it aired during the late 80s into the 90s? What were you doing? How did the Cosby Show fit into your life during that time?
Well, the irony of it is I was in seminary at the time. Seminary and graduate school. Okay. And so when the Cosby's first came out, I'm not gonna lie, I had to confront some of my own biases, because my first thought was, this is not realistic. Okay. And I had to get schooled myself. I had to understand. And then the more I watched the Cosbys, because I realized I'm of a different era. And so we would sit at home and listen to Bill Cosby's albums. Back then they were called albums, CDs. And I realized a lot in watching him. My father also emulated a lot of his stuff. Okay. And not at the same time, because at that point he wasn't watching him, but a lot of the stuff, because we watched him in stand-up, we watched him in concerts, we listened to all of his albums. My father was a big fan, and a lot of his idiosyncrasies and a lot of my father's sayings, he literally got from Bill Cosby - the father, Cliff Huxtable.
Sure.
So it was interesting. And as I watched the show, it became a part of my family as well.
Yeah. So then as we move into the 2000s, actually before we get there, we move into the 90s. I meet you in 1990, actually. And it's when we're moving out of the Cosby Show and into a different world. And I know that there's some people watching right now, some people who were on the show on Monday, as a matter of fact, who recall having you as a professor when you taught at James Madison University. JMU, for those who don't know, JMU is a PWI. And when I was a student there, 1990 to 94, the school's population was 4% Black, 4% Black. And every Thursday night at 8 and 8:30, we would all gather together in the student union and watch Thursday night television from 8 to 9 o'clock, Cosby Show and A Different World. And for at least that half hour that A Different World was on, JMU felt like an HBCU at the very least, by the fact that all the Black students had gathered.
Right.
And faculty, Dr. Bullock was there, and Dr. Gabbins was there, and he would be there on occasion. And, it was like the Black collective, both student, faculty, staff would all show up. There's one of our your former students there on the screen now, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Dr. Tina Opie now. We would all gather
Right.
and find comfort in each other and find fellowship in each other. Do you recall that time being at JMU, and if a different world impact your experience being at a PWI, and what did it mean to have that collective galvanize
I'll be
around
there.
that work?
Terésa, thank you. That's an excellent question, because actually I had just come out of graduate school and teaching at James Madison. I was the first person of color in the communication department. And so I needed you all as much as you needed me, for that matter, because we were very few of us. But I was blessed in that I got to hang with the Black students. Don't forget, the choir, 200 voice choir, I was the advisor for that choir. I was invited for the Zetas. So I got to hang with students. And it was a pivotal time because it made us proud to be. And one thing I go back and say about Claire Huxtable and even Dr. Huxtable, they made it fashionable to be professional. We watched Claire try to dress like Claire when we showed up, and that those heels just didn't work at the university, but we tried to be part. And then when Hillman came out, then it gave us a whole nother role model, a set of models of even how to be students, how to enjoy ourselves, how to be professors, engaging students, understanding that even though it's a journey together, because we were older, because we were the professors, because we were the sages, that we had to guide you all in the process. And I think for me, it just solidified what I knew. By that time, I had a bachelor's degree from a PWI. I had 3 master's degrees, and up until that point, out of all those degrees, I had 3 Black professors. Okay. And so one thing I knew is that for my terminal degree, and that's why I ended up at Howard University, for my terminal degree, I needed to find balance for my life. And what I didn't realize I needed that happen at Howard, I was put back together from all the stuff I had laid down along the way, trying to find my way, my life, myself, and trying to fit into a world that was not designed for me. And so to watch Hillman, you know what, you could be a teacher, you could be a professor and wear your braids, rock your locks, whatever you choose you want to do. Yeah. And it gave me the resilience that even after I graduated from Howard and went back to a predominantly white institution where I was the first person of any color ever to be on the faculty in a tenure position. Okay. And so it helped me to maintain my identity and not be apologetic about it.
Yeah.
And so and it helps you to buffer the bumps. Okay. Because when you choose to be unapologetically who you are, there are people who will fight you tooth and nail.
Yeah.
But you just understand that's what they do, and you got to survive it.
So then you go to Howard for your PhD, and you left us. You just were just gone. I looked up, and there was no more. No, it wasn't that.
My contract was up, Terésa.
I'm being dramatic. Yes, people. I'm being dramatic because
so
I just felt like
sound like Martin. I just looked around and he's gone.
Yeah. But you know what? I will say,
you were ready. You were ready.
And I was well mentored by folks who came shortly after you left the university. But you allowed me to come to DC on a regular basis and stay with you and spend some time up there while you were at Howard. And I remembered how things had shifted for you. Your shoulders were much more relaxed. You laughed a lot more. This was the time when I was doing stand-up comedy, and I was constantly gigging in DC and in Baltimore. And so, yes, I used to do stand-up comedy, people. And Carolyn was my home, essentially.
And she was good. She was good.
Well, I appreciate that. I think you may be biased, but I really did enjoy it. It was an extraordinary experience, but
Nah, you were good.
again, it was one of those things where, were it not for Carolyn and her encouragement and her coaching, it wouldn't have been an experience that it would have been that enjoyable. But I remember coming to stay with you in DC on occasion, and you could tell your life was affirmed being at Howard, and you felt different to me. What was it like day one stepping onto Howard's campus, or that first year, navigating your way through an experience that you hadn't had in your higher education experience?
Yolanda Adams has a song out. It feels like home to me. It just felt like home. In fact, to this day, I still love the East Coast. It felt like home. I am from the Midwest. I have, in a sense, especially being an ordained clergy, being in the Midwest and in the South, we were still not that accepted. But when I got to DC, it was just gosh, what is a good word? Monopoly of goodness. People there looked like me. People there were smart. People there were affirming. Honestly, 3 master's degree and a bachelor's degree from the University of Missouri School of Journalism. And it never dawned on me that I might be a little smart until I went to Howard, because I had never been affirmed.
Yeah.
I have never been affirmed. And even when I had professors who supported me, and I had some wonderful professors who supported me, there was just, the affirmation was not there because they couldn't figure out what to do with me.
Yeah.
Okay. And so getting to Howard, and the chair of the department is a Black woman, the dean of the school, the president of the school, you're seeing people that look like me who have achieved, oh my goodness, climbed the highest mountains and ford the streams. And so it affirmed who I was and who I was becoming.
Yeah.
And that's why it's such a gift that I get to teach at a HBCU now. People keep asking me, how could you be in Mississippi? They don't understand. It's home. It's home. I'm with people who have been forsaken in a lot of ways, who have been overlooked, who've been underestimated. And I get to tell my students, who are the Hillmans of Mississippi, one of them, that you all can go and be anywhere. You're just as smart as any student I've run into anywhere else in the world. Yeah. And so that's the gift. That's the gift. That's the gift. And it gives you energy. It gives you wing. You know that being at PD, it's different. It's a different set of people. I promise you, especially being at Howard University, walking around the corner to NoDerivs and having my Jamaican, my Caribbean food, and finding roots in the Ethiopian food down in Adams Market.
Yeah.
Don't let me get started. But it's just the idea. In fact, one time I had a really rough day at work. And that weekend I was headed to Washington, D.C. for a conference. And I literally went the first day I got in D.C. and I sat on Georgia Avenue right in front of NoDerivs. Because I had to recollect myself. And every now and then you got to do that. You got to go somewhere and remember who you are. Because in being in a predominant world, there's so much we give, but it's almost like PTSD. We're on the front line. So I sat there for a while and I watched one of the students at Howard, a group walk by. One sister had on thigh-high purple suede boots.
Yes.
And we're rocking an afro that was kind of blondish red with her ears pierced with the big hoops. I saw a brother walk by with books, and I remembered. Then I got my oxtails, okay?
Yeah.
And my cocoa bread. You know what I'm saying? I sat and I remembered.
Yeah.
I remembered who I was and the people I had come from.
Mm.
Okay. There's my auntie. Hey, Aunt Catherine. She's downstairs. I
Hey, Miss
remember,
Catherine, yes. I
remember.
haven't seen her in
And
what, like 2 years now? Yeah.
yeah, it's been 2 years.
It's been 2
Right.
years,
I
yeah.
remembered. And that was the only thing that actually stopped me from getting my nose pierced because I needed, I had such a rough week with your cousins. And sometimes you've got to find those places
Yeah.
so you can remember.
Yeah. What you
And so, yes, Howard Hillman,
go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. I'm having a very similar experience at Prairie View. Having gone to a PWI for undergrad, an MSI for graduate school, Minority Serving Institute. Cal State Long Beach is predominantly Black and Latino, although as a Cal State school, its system is a little bit different. So yeah, it's an MSI, but it operates like a PWI on most days. And so having taught at a series of PWIs,
It's California.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then I somehow tripped and fell into Houston. And Prairie View has been the most affirming experience. Even from the day I was interviewed and I'm on campus, I felt like there was a jolt of energy, a bolt of lightning surged through me. And I knew I had to figure out how to be there. And people have asked me, they're like, that's out in the middle of nowhere. How, you lived in LA for 15, 16 years. You lived in DC and you moved to Atlanta and you did all these things. Prairie View, Texas. And you're right. It may as well be Greenville, Mississippi, or, because it isn't
the place. It'll be
it isn't the place, it's the people and the mission, right? And in the PhD program that I'm in, I'm having the time of my life, and I can definitely concur and understand. And I had oxtails for the first time once I moved here. Life-changing. All right. So that, that was the 90s. It brings us into the 2000s. We go into the 2000s and we start to hear in the early 2000s, the beginnings, the rumblings of maybe the affair. At the late 90s, there might have been a love child. And then we come into the mid 2000s and, the deluge of allegations then kick in and we start to find out, people simply aren't as they seem. And, it's the conversation around R. Kelly and it's the conversation around any list of people with power, right? But in particular with Bill Cosby, we start to hit allegation number 60, 65, or whatever the number ended up being. How did that land on you? Certainly as we were putting the book together, and that became a central piece of our thinking and in the act of killing Cliff Huxtable. How did all that information land on you?
Of course, first it was disbelief. But I wasn't as surprised as I should have been surprised. And I think because a couple of things. By the time all the allegations came out, and it's just ironic, you all, if we don't learn anything else from Bill Cosby, we need to learn this one thing. Now, this all started with him again when he put out that one meme. And if you remember the meme, he said, I probably shouldn't do this. Okay, that's a hint. Trust your instinct. But if you remember by then, Bill Cosby had gone on the circuit, and Bill Cosby started being the father that we didn't like.
Yeah.
Remember, because we felt like he was turning on us in public.
Yeah.
Telling us things that we have loved and embraced you.
Mhm.
And now you're coming out condemning us and walking away as though somebody else has paid you to say those things to us.
Yeah.
And we didn't like that. But when I got the information and then started really getting it, I think the thing that surprised me was the fact that people had known all along. There are those who knew, I'm convinced of that. And they put up with it as long as they were willing to put up with him.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they were benefiting, as long as they were getting something from Bill Cosby, they had no problems overlooking what he was doing.
Sure.
And that's what I had a problem with, because it could have been stopped a long time ago.
Yeah.
We did not have to lose him the way we lost him. But we have a system in our society that we will build you up, we will use you, and then when we're done, we will destroy you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I felt two ways. I felt that he is a gift to us, and he is now a gift that has been destroyed by himself.
Mm.
Okay. And then you wonder, all the people who covered for him, why would you cover for him?
Yeah.
But we see it over and over again with R. Kelly, with all the others. And the reality is, Terésa, I just have this philosophy with brilliance, with brilliance, and all of these artists are brilliant and gifted beyond human understanding,
Mm-hmm.
even Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And with all of them, something lacks somewhere, because you can't just have it all. Forget Beyonce, you just can't have it all. And so each of them had a lacking somewhere.
Yeah.
So Beyonce aside, but each of them could have been helped and could have been saved. And yet we chose to literally let them kill themselves and hurt other people along the way, instead of saying, we need to protect our national treasures.
Right.
Even with Whitney Houston, with all of that gift, all of that prowess, there's that one spot. And I think all of us have a place in us that is an empty soul. And we try to substitute somewhere how to fill it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I want to go theological, I would also say, I think that's part of that one breath God blew into us that made us human, is that one breath that cannot be completed or fulfilled unless God is in it somewhere. So all of us got that one empty place in us. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we ignore people trying to fill it when we want stuff from them.
Yeah. Or feel attacked, or feel somehow they don't understand who we really are, when in reality, you're missing their grace. You're missing their grace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think the other side is, not only are we missing their grace, but we start believing what they tell us.
Come on. Yeah.
When you start believing what people tell you about you, at some point you get lost when they quit telling you and quit affirming that part of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was the first person of color to have a TV series, I Spy. He's been out there for a long time. And how is it that nobody could help him?
Mm.
And so we wait until he's 80-something and put him in jail prison.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Enablers. That's what we're really talking about. Like you said, so many people depended on either the check continuing to come in, or a particular style of life to continue to, have that, or, whatever the case may be. I'm listening to the recent interview that Camille Cosby offered up, and, still blaming the women, still accusing the women of lying. Look, I believe women, or I believe people who have been assaulted when they say a thing has happened. Were it just one person, that might be okay. Well, okay, let's look at this, his word against her word, or, whatever the case may be. But by the time you got to person number 5, at some point you have to go, there's something to this.
Yeah.
We got to person 60 something, 65. you just can't ignore that, right? Because even if 64 people lied, if that one person who told the truth was telling the truth, that's still one person too many. So I think the whole argument of contesting the women or contesting the validity of the stories, we have to just kind of put that away because it just makes no sense. I'm gonna move into the next section of. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yep.
I know you got to go, but this is the thing that I think we have not yet figured out how to balance, because 62 women, I refuse to believe that some of them hadn't heard about this kinky bill before they went with him.
You're right.
And I think the other side of the coin, when we get healed enough, we've got to talk about people who use their bodies as currency. Okay. I won't even say women because men do it too.
Right.
We know Weinstein had a couch, but we would show up for dinner anyway and sit on that couch. So, and he is guilty. Please know, I am not blaming the victim, but what I'm saying is sometimes we send mixed messages.
Yeah.
We play the game and then we cry foul and we still get what we want. Because think about it. If I've come to you for a job, right? And then I get on your couch, you drug me or whatever, I sue you later, I'm still going to benefit. So someplace we've got to figure out how to protect everybody.
Yeah.
Somehow we should have been able to protect Bill from the women and protect the women from Bill.
Yeah.
Because if we're not careful, we're all going to be culpable. You know, and again, I'm not blaming the victim. Please do not write me. But what I'm saying is sometimes we are not as innocent.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not as innocent as when the story ends. No always mean no. But what happens when you already knew what he was going to do?
Yeah.
And you agree. Exactly. So we just got to find that balance. We got to be careful. We've got to rewrite communications so that we don't use our bodies as currency to get what we want and then cry a foul when we don't get what we want.
Sure.
So God bless Bill Cosby and may Cliff Huxtable rest in peace.
It's all the things.
Is it my turn to go?
No. You're gonna stay right there. So I want to bring in my interns who I want to bring in my interns who have been the most instrumental piece of this puzzle. I mean, yes, I have 51 actors and panelists, a village to thank, but the 4 people who just held me up at my back this whole time between rehearsals, making sure all the participants knew which link to go to and where to be, and making sure everyone had scripts, tweeting and posting things, reaching out to different outlets in terms of publicity. I just have to bring up Cameron Swan, Amarachi Ede, Laura Burks to the forefront. JeJuan Jennings, he's at work right now. He had to work tonight, so he couldn't join us. So we love you, JeJuan. I know you're watching, or you might be sneaking a little bit of this on your phone at work. Please don't get fired. I can't pay you what they pay you. And I just also want to thank try that again. I want to thank Professor Lewis Smith in our communications department. So Lewis Smith is one of our faculty members who runs our internship program for the Department of Communications, Languages and Communication. Mosquito just passed. You see, I have a fresh haircut. And last night, the mosquitoes got my head. They were biting my head. It was not fun. I was in there, almost concussed myself swatting mosquitoes in the middle of the night. But we have an internship class that offers spaces to our graduating, to our late junior and senior students who need professional internships during the fall and spring semesters. And rarely do we have opportunities or space to offer internships during the summer, but because this program or this series came up and I knew I would need help, I asked Mr. Smith if I could have 3-4 interns and if they can get their 120 hours a little bit early, although despite the fact that they're registered for the class this coming fall, we worked it out and this was my team. For the summer, and I couldn't have asked for a better collective of people to help us out. So, exactly, we're going to give them a great round of applause. Tell us one more time, Wayne, introduce yourself and tell us what you did on the internship. And I just want to like to have a conversation with you and with Carolyn at the same time. Starting with you, Laura, tell us who you are and what you've done for the series.
Okay. So I'm Laura Burks, graduating in the fall. I have been assisting TDV with the live broadcast. So I've been the person where you see like people moving around the screen, the comments going up, helping with the rehearsals and making sure everybody is where they're supposed to be on time. And then also, getting to help assist and direct just a little bit. So that's been my role when it comes to the project.
Excellent. Even as she's talking, you notice that she was in and then she was out. She's working as she's talking. It's awesome. Amarachi Ede, tell us who you are and what you've done for the series.
Hi guys, my name is Amarachi Ede and I was a publicist for this project. I learned so many new things. This was my first time being a publicist, so everything was very brand new. I wrote the press releases. Good. I updated everyone on social media when a new episode was coming out, when the In Case You Missed It were posted. I learned a lot about communicating professionally with this internship, so it is definitely something that I would want to do again. And I just want to kind of go back to what TDV was saying when she was saying that she just felt like there was a force pulling her to PV. And I just want to say that that is very true because she has given so much opportunity and so much inspiration to all of the students in the comm department. And I want to say thank you, TDV, because you're amazing.
That's my heart blowing up.
Oh, sweet.
Thank you so much, Amarachi. I just adore y'all. I really do. Y'all do that for me as well. Okay, nope, because I'm not gonna cry no more because it's been crying the whole time. Cam, tell us who you are and what you do for the series.
Okay, my name is Cameron Swan. I was the social media manager for the internship. And so what I did was, like Amarachi said, basically keep everybody up to date with social media posts, just tweeting it, Instagramming it, put it on Facebook. And I also help edit and publish the In Case You Missed It videos just for the viewers who missed the episodes. And this experience was worth it because not only that it had me show more of my talents on making more videos and everything, but it showed like how I can interact with people and to keep everyone up to date with this modern day social media. So thank you, TV, for this opportunity.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure. Now, look, Laura is working. She's putting up comments that people left about her, so she get a little extra shine.
I love Alicia. Oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure working with you.
So here's the most amazing opportunity I have right now is that at this moment I have on one hand I have Carolyn Gordon, Dr. Carolyn Gordon, who was my first communications professor when I was an undergrad, and on the other side I have my communication students, and just kind of as we we come into the last maybe 15, 20 minutes of tonight's episode, I'd love to talk to you all collectively about the power of attending an HBCU and what it means from both a student perspective, from a teacher's perspective. And I knew Laura was going to do that. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. I am so well loved, and in particular by you as well. I do appreciate Michelle for sharing me with this wealth of people and love and the school and the, all the things. Talk to me about the experience of attending or teaching at an HBCU. What's the power of an HBCU for all of you?
I can go. So for me, I originally went to school in Fresno, California at Fresno State University at a PWI. And awesome professors, great program, but like you kind of felt like there wasn't that care, that authenticating, like you guys were talking about, and making you feel like you're part of the community. So I ended up taking a break from school, and when I went back, my now fiance was at Prairie View, and he was telling me about it and how great it was. And I always wanted to go to a HBCU. I actually turned down an HBCU to go to Fresno. And when I came to Prairie View, I felt it. Like, I felt that every professor in the comm department, like, they cared. Like, the first day of class, I had a professor trying to help me get on a documentary. And then a year or two in, I got to meet TDV. And she changed my whole perception of what I wanted to do. And just like everyone cares, and they want to make sure that you're succeeding. They want to get you involved in as many things as they can get you involved in. And that feels like home. Like I almost hate that I had the PWI experience, and I wish I would have done this first. But yeah, I used to like wonder about going to a school in the middle of nowhere, but it doesn't even really feel like the middle of nowhere when you're on campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as my mom said in the comments, it changed my whole attitude.
Hey, Miss Bonita. Yes, I understand. Every episode, and she's definitely
did.
What's the HBCU experience been like for you?
The HBCU experience has been a lot of authentic relationships, like Laura said. The comm department is amazing. All the professors and the students have a very natural, organic conversations. It's not hard to get up to talk to your professors if you need anything. It's very real, and they actually care about your success. I've kind of had a mix of HBCU schools and PWI schools throughout my education. So for me to choose to go to an HBCU instead of a PWI was definitely one of the best decisions of my life. I feel like it's shaped my attitude. It's shaped how I speak to people and my outlook on the world. You know, when I leave the HBCU environment and go into the real world, it's a shock in a way, because it's like, oh, wow, yeah, other people do exist. But I love it. I love being around my people. I love inspiring my people, and I love building with my people. So,
yeah. And Cam, how's the HBCU experience been for you?
This experience has been wonderful, actually. Many people won't know that PV was like one of my last options, but I'm glad it was, because it made me appreciate the school more and appreciate HBCUs as a whole more. Coming here, I didn't really speak a lot. I was always involved, but I would never really say much. But once I met TDV my sophomore year, it's like things started going. I started seeing how more I can work with my people, and seeing we all got the same goal. We all want to succeed. We all want to get things accomplished. So to, like Amarachi said, to get things going with your people and to like feed off one each other and uplift one each other has really made HBCU experience really well. And once I would go out to the real world, like just wearing PV gear or meet new people, it's like bro, this is really what's up. So my experience has really been well. I'm actually glad I picked HBCU because not only I was able to like basically relate more, like anything's going on, like with issues, or just feel it for one another. It's like I feel like home. Like it's like I made better friends that I did in college, that I did in high school, and it's feel like y'all family basically. It's like these are my cousins, these are my brothers, my sisters. So
yeah,
it feels well. HBCU is like it's my second home basically.
Right. I can definitely attest to Cam being a very quiet person upon meeting him. My first semester teaching Cam, it was like pulling teeth to get him to speak up in class. And he was like, "It's a film class. I'm good. I'm just going, we're just gonna shoot stuff. He ain't got nothing to say. I'm just gonna, And now, just an awesome and wonderfully articulate young man who's got a lot to say. Cam's words were well used in his web series and his writings. These three people are outstanding writers. And that's something that probably more than anything has made me so proud to watch their work as screenwriters flourish. Do you all have any questions for Carolyn? As the person who's bringing in as the anchor of this piece of this series, do you have any questions for her or? I don't know.
I have a question. Okay. What advice can you give for the next generation of HBCU graduates?
That's a good one.
Be proud. As Miss Universe says, take up space. Recruit for your institution. Give money back to your institution. And understand that you belong in this world. You will get to places where the rhythm is different. As you know, especially having gone to Fresno, that you will understand that you are what we call bi-formed or bi-formation. You will walk in a lot of worlds, but don't ever doubt yourself. You are ready. You are equipped. And even though sometimes you will feel you're not as good enough, you will discover that you are better than you ever thought you were.
Thank you so much.
So hold on to what you're being taught now. The other thing is keep in touch with your friends. Okay. They come and they go, but hold on to them. Because every now and then you need somebody who remember you when. Okay. Before you were president of the United States, before you own your own network or you're a conglomerate of own networks, somebody who knew you when, okay, when you ate ramen noodles, okay, with no water in them. And so, when you stepped on the floor unfortunately, you all,
at Carolyn Gordon's house. Yeah.
Exactly. You need people like had to say, come on, honey, look at here. Stay in touch with your professors, at least one or two, right, Terésa? And even if you lose them, you can find them.
Right.
But stay in touch because we're journeying together. And if you have a good professor, the commitment is already there to walk with you the rest of your life as far as you want them to go with you. So don't underestimate that and just do you in the world. Your future is waiting for you with open arms. Learn from people you respect. Learn from them. So I'm going to Fatal Attractions on TV1 now. When you fall in love, don't go crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. If he or she, don't go crazy.
Oh man,
don't go crazy.
Don't go crazy.
Okay.
You know what? Sage advice.
Great
Sage advice. Don't go crazy.
Don't go crazy. What you say?
Yeah. That's sage advice.
Great advice.
Yeah, because you all. There's a world out there waiting for you, and there are exit ramps all along the way. And you've got to be wise at the places you decide to get off the road, And so make sure that even when you give your heart away, you give it to someone who has you in mind. Okay? Not tell you what you want to hear, but have you in mind, because you all are prime. I mean, can I just be real? I don't know who's watching, but you're prime. There are people out there who wants to steal your gifts. There are people who wants to steal your youth. There's some people who want to steal your sanity. And you've got to be wise. So always hold on to some people in your life that you respect and you love. Okay? And with that being said, if you know that you have outgrown someone, you don't have to throw them away. Just keep growing. Just keep growing. The ones who will leave. And if they leave, let them go. Okay? And if they stay and they're bringing you down in a way that hurts you, you got to clip the wings. But you're ready. You are all ready. I'm so proud of you all. The world is waiting for you and the world needs you. And I just apologize the mess we've left it in for you, but that's your job. We done our part.
Oh, wow. I think that's probably the best note to leave all of us, and this entire series on. Carolyn, I want to thank you so much for being not only a part of this series, but
my honor. My honor.
And for writing such an amazing piece to conclude the book and to conclude the series. Laura, Amarachi, Laura, Amarachi, and Cam, I want to thank you as well for being such instrumental. I can't even call you interns. You guys were like partners. You really kept things moving forward in a way that if I had to do things like I typically do them as a party of one, I'm a card-carrying control freak. And what I've learned in this experience from you is that other people are capable. And not just capable, but extraordinary at showing up and doing good work, for the overall. So I just appreciate you for teaching me and for helping me. And then I want to thank all the actors and amazing, talented people who gave their voices to the book, to the chapters, all of the people who were brave enough to take on characters that are iconic and performed so wonderfully by other amazing performers, that we were able to see all of these beloved characters because of you. And so I appreciate every single one of our, I want to say it's 28 actors. And then to my beloved panelists, the most brilliant people on the planet. You all have just participated in a passion project for me, and I can't thank you enough for giving your wisdom and your time. Giving your wisdom and your time. You know, COVID is still a thing. Please wear your mask. Please protect yourself, and if you can, stay at home. If you cannot stay at home, please do all the things you can to keep yourself safe. Avoid people who choose not to keep themselves safe, because we have work to do. We have living to do. We have joy to hold, and we have love to endure. Thank you so much for being a part of the death of Cliff Huxtable. This has been an extraordinary experience to celebrate storytelling and to celebrate a family and a narrative that has its fingerprints on the success of our lives. And we will not let anyone tear that down. We will continue to build that up. That said, much love to you. Thank you so much for being a part of this series. And I'm going to go and get me some tequila. Peace.